I have a plant here that is great for late season blooms. Really beautiful light shade of pinky purple. I have made it my mission to have a garden that blooms from spring all the way through fall. And today I'm going to share with you 10 plants that are blooming in my Zone 6B, 7A garden in mid-September. Starting here with a heptacodium, also known as a seven suns flower. And this variety is the Temple of Bloom by Proven Winners. I planted this here 2 seasons ago and it has grown wonderfully. This is a plant that can be grown as a large shrub, or over time you can limb it up and train it into a tree, either a single stem or a multi-stem. It starts in the spring with really large green shiny leaves, and in late summer, right now in September, it is loaded with these beautiful white blooms that the pollinators love. There is a ton of bees on this plant right now. And then once these blooms fade, the calyxes or the bracts will turn a bright red. So it looks like the tree is blooming again with red flowers. It is a gorgeous tree or shrub. And the stem or the trunk does peel. So you do get some winter interest with it as well. This is definitely a great plant for a September bloom show. We are right outside my raised bed garden, and I have a plant here that is great for late season blooms. I planted this last season and it is a Vernonia, also known as Ironweed. It is native, and this variety happens to be called Summer Surrender. What's great about it is it's a late season source for pollinators, for nectar, and the deer stay away from it. It is also deer resistant. Now this variety gets to be about 48 inches in height, and it is hardy in zones of 4 through 9. But recently I went to Michigan and visited Walter's Gardens, which is the home of Proven Winners Perennials. And there is a new variety of Vernonia coming out next season in 2026 that only stays 3 by 3 in height. So it's much shorter, which means you can use it in many different applications in most gardens. And so I am excited to try that variety in my garden as well. But if you want some purple late season blooms, this is a great plant for a pollinator garden, which is exactly where I have it planted here. Vernonia, also known as Ironweed. Here in this bed, there are 2 perennials that I want to show you. And one of them I showed in my August blooming plants, and that was Calamenta. At that point, it had just started blooming, but now in September, you can see that it is in full bloom. This variety is a white variety, and it is called Montrose White. The pollinators absolutely love it, and it has a minty fragrance. It is part of the Nepeta or Nepeta family, also known as Catmint. So this Calamenta is a great late season bloomer. And right behind it is a plant that every September garden should have, and it is Sedum. Now, Sedum loves to grow in full sun in a very well-draining soil. You can see that it has really thick stems, and it is sort of a succulent, right? So it holds on to moisture. So it means that it will have enough water to keep this plant happy. So you don't want to overwater it, or it can tend to splay in the center and lay on the ground. If you give it a lot of sun in a very well-draining soil, it'll be really happy. The pollinators also love it, and it comes in so many different heights and varieties. So right here I have a really popular one called Matrona, and it has these really dark stems, and it's fairly tall at about 25 to 30 inches or so. And right behind it I have a variety that is more of a shorter, kind of a ground cover variety that also has this really beautiful dark foliage. It is just past its bloom now, but this is what it looks like. It is called the Stone Crop Sun Sparkler Dazzleberry, and it blooms in summer and autumn. And when we get around to the front yard, I will show you 2 more really beautiful varieties of sedum. I recently picked up another late season bloomer. Now this is the Clara Curtis chrysanthemum, but when I was at the nursery, the person working there told me that it's recently been reclassified as a Dendranthema, and it has the most beautiful dainty pink blooms. They look very similar to an aster, but I really like the color. I think it's a really beautiful light shade of pinky purple. So this, it gets to be about 15 inches in height. It blooms in fall. Here's the name on it. It says it attracts butterflies, and it can be grown in sun or part sun. It is hardy in zones 4 through 9, and it likes a well-drained soil and needs 12 to 18 inch spacing. Has striking flowers, attracts butterflies to the garden, and exceptionally hardy and long-lived. So I am really happy to have picked this up. I'm going to add it to a new bed that I'm working on, and I think it'll be beautiful for late season color. And right here in my patio bed, I have a lot of color going on in mid-September, and I absolutely love it. You can see along the front, I have a drift of the Firelight Tidbit hydrangeas that are getting all of their beautiful fall rosy pink coloring. Right behind, I planted some annual dahlias that have a really beautiful yellow bloom, and they're still loaded with buds this late in the season, which actually is when dahlias really pick up their blooms, is towards the tail end of summer and into fall. You can see right here, I have the Joe Pyeweed that has been blooming for about a month now and looking really beautiful. Another really long blooming perennial that the pollinators love. And the new one for September is right below. This is called Shalone, or Turtlehead. It is also a native perennial. And the reason it's called Turtlehead is because the little blooms kind of look like a turtle's head. They're really interesting. They come in this shade of rosy pink as well as a white variety. It stands about 24 to 30 inches high. It is a pretty hardy perennial. It's just a workhorse really for the late season garden. I have another new plant that I'm going to add to the garden this season. As you can see, I went ahead and I expanded this bed, so now I have some room from some new plants. And this is a Caryopteris, which is another really great late season pollinator plant. It gets to be as large as a shrub at about 3 by 3 in size, and it has these really beautiful purple blooms. There are some varieties that also have pink blooms. I recently ordered this one and it came by mail, and it is the Caryopteris Beyond Midnight. It's also known as a Bluebeard. And so I am going to plant that right here. You can see that I have some foliage from a peony that bloomed in the spring, and so I'll have that peony for spring color, and I will have this Caryopteris filling out this corner for some late season fall color. The next plant I want to share with you is a variety of anemone. Now, last month in August, I showed you the Rubitissimo, which was the first anemone in my garden to bloom. But because I love them so much, I have a couple more varieties, some that bloom in September and even some that bloom in October. This variety is my September bloomer, and it is called Honorine Jobert. It is a really beautiful and dainty white bloom. It's got a very classic and ethereal look to it. It stands about 24 to 30 inches in height. Now, anemones do like a very well-draining but moist soil. So soil that retains a little bit of moisture is okay. Otherwise, you start to get foliage that gets a little bit dry. It also spreads through runners. So if it is happy in the spot that it's in, it has a tendency to get a little excited and spread itself around. But I don't mind because I really love them, and they're super easy to pull out and share with friends if you don't want them where they're growing. Anemones, another really great late season bloomer. Is there anything more fall-esque than ornamental grasses? I absolutely love them for the late season garden, and I have several varieties in my garden. I have a tall, compact variety that I absolutely love called the Carl Forrester Calamagratis reed grass. It stands only about 4 feet tall and about 2 to 2.5 feet wide, and it is really pretty this time of year with the blooms that look like straw or wheat. And then I have this variety here in my walkway called Carly Rose, and you can see that it has these pink tinged plumes that come out in late summer. I love the way that these move gracefully in the breeze. And it just adds a lot of texture and movement to your perennial flower borders. I also have a shorter variety that is in the front of a border called Little Bunny, but they also have Hamlin, which is also a shorter stature grass. So if you want to grow them in the front of a border, there are many varieties to choose from tall to short and everything in between. The next plant that I want to share with you are knockout roses. Now, these are a landscape shrub rose that will bloom for me all the way from end of May, beginning of June through October when we get our first frost here in my zone 6B, 7A. It gets a really large flush in June, and then it has a little bit of a reset through July, and then by August it is loaded with buds again, and it will bloom all the way through October. The variety that I have here is called Double Pink Knockouts. They have a really pretty bubblegum pink color. You can see it coordinates really nicely with this annual that I'm growing in my front border this year, the Suncredible Sunflower. This has also been a powerhouse. So adding annuals that bloom all season is another really great way to fill in gaps when your perennials are having a little bit of a lull. But the knockout roses are hardy in zones 5 through 11, and they like full sun and well-draining soil. And here I have a variety of aster called Frikartii munch. Now asters are another wonderful plant for that late season color, and there are many varieties of aster. I happened to find this variety at a local nursery last season and I absolutely love it. It has a pretty tidy habit. It grows at about 24 to 30 inches in height, so it's great for the middle of a border. And you can see that the blooms look very similar to the Dramantha that I showed you earlier, the Clara Curtis, even though this is an aster. And I love this color on it. I actually just ordered 2 more because when I went back to the nursery to pick up another couple of these for different borders, they didn't grow them this year, but they regretted it because they saw how wonderful it grows in their trial beds. So they told me that they'd be growing more next season. And so when they said that to me, I knew that this was a winner, and I went online and I found some and ordered 2 more 5-inch containers that are coming in a couple of weeks for me to plant in another border. But if you are looking for asters for your late season garden, I highly recommend the Frikartii munch. When we were in the backyard, I had shown you 2 varieties of sedum, the Matrona and the Sunsparkler Raspberry, both of which have dark foliage. Well, here is another variety of sedum, and this is called Neon, and you can see it has a really vibrant chartreuse foliage and a pink bloom that is currently in full bloom. This was given to me by my neighbor several years ago, and I started off with 1 plant, and I now have a drift of 5 planted all the way along this walkway. I also have that little bunny grass that I mentioned that is a lower growing front of the border ornamental grass, and I think it makes a really beautiful fall pairing for perennials together, the sedum with the ornamental bunny grass. You can see that the front of this border is all soil, and that is because we recently cut it a little bit deeper. It's part of our fall project list. So each year I inch out just a little bit more, and it gives me some room to add a little bit more depth and a few more plants. We are starting to lose light quickly. It is later in the evening. When it cooled off, we came out here to do a tour of these perennials. Let me know what is blooming in your September garden in the comments below. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.